The only thing I can tie it down to is the extreme emotion changing so rapidly, and coming out of that and thinking, how the hell do I come to terms with the fact that my emotion can change so quickly and seemingly there's no control over it. It just happened. I think it was that particular engagement that did it. Although, I mean, there were lots of other possible triggers, but I suspect that was the one.
And how are you now?
A lot better. Yeah, I've going back about 12, 14 years now, I started to get cycles of not feeling very good. And I thought, it's coming back. So I thought, well, if I'm going to live with it for the rest of my life, I might as well get a war disability pension. So I applied for a war disability pension, got assessed, and the guy said, yeah, it's classic PTSD symptoms, I'm afraid, but it's 25 years since the event. I'm not sure we'll be able to do much for you now, but there is someone local to you who's got a good record if you're willing to pay privately. And I said, yeah, absolutely, give it a shot. And I was referred to a local therapist who was fantastic, and she really made life worth living again for me and smoothed out all the a lot of the bumps. Yeah, did a very good job.
You mentioned when we talked last time that your father was still alive when you deployed to the Falklands. When you came back, was it something you could talk to him about?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I wasn't going to make the same mistake as he made of not actually talking about it. It's a lot better now. Combat Stress has got some very good programs. They weren't available when I was going through my problems, but no, they're very good. But it's more widely appreciated now. I think it's always been there, but people have covered it up, or good old British stiff upper lip, just get on with it, lad. But I'm pretty sure that my father was suffering from PTSD from the Second World War, although he would never entertain that possibility. I mean, they shot you for it in the First War, they grounded you in the Second World War, and the Air Force tried to court-martial one of the exchange pilots in the Falklands War.
Was that the chap that you said had to go home?
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't sort of say too much about it, other than the squadron had sympathy for his predicament.
Oh, very much so. He was a very good instructor, just about to leave the Air Force and was sent off down south. He was on exchange with the Navy. He shot the second Argentine aircraft down on the first day of the war, and then the following day, or a couple of days later, got a really nasty cold, and genuine bunged up cold, couldn't fly. So it was locked in the ship, and suddenly got huge claustrophobia. So the doc gave him some happy pills, and he was fine. He was the ops officer for several days until his cold cleared up, and he stopped taking the tablets and just said, I can't do this anymore. So they put him on a ship heading north, and the Air Force wanted to court-martial him.
Really?
Lack of moral fibre. And the Navy said, no, we want him back. We want him to train the next lot of guys. The Air Force wouldn't have it. But when we got back into Portsmouth, Brian Hanrahan came on board. He was a great favourite of ours during the conflict. And he said, where's Bertie? And we said, well, the Air Force are trying to screw him. And he said, okay, give me the details and I'll make a few pertinent inquiries, which he did. And he ended up getting a medical discharge, and he got his medical back within 6 months and started flying Hunters as a civilian at Yeovilton. But no, we were up in arms. Guy had done more than anyone else in the Air Force had done on his first day at war.
So you stayed in the Navy until 1991, that would have been then?
92, yes. 92, I transferred Air Force to Navy in about 84, I think it was, 83, 84. I was going to leave, and the Navy said, no, don't do that. Join us. We'll promote you, give you a squadron, everything. I got promoted, but I never did get a squadron. But I transferred to the Navy and flew on all the frontline squadrons, 801 mostly as their AY, and then senior pilot. And then 92, I decided I had to leave. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. Things were getting on top of me. And of course, post the Gulf War, none of the airlines were recruiting. So it took me 2 years to get a job. And eventually I got a job flying 747s with Virgin, and did 19 years nearly with them.
How much military time did you get then? So you joined...
I joined in 66, and with a 6-month interregnum left in 92.
So you spent almost as much time flying 747s as you did flying in the military?
Yes. not so many people shooting at me.
And when we interviewed before, I could see there was a tiger moth on the windowsill behind you, or maybe on the bookshelf behind you. So that's what you do now. You own your own tiger moth.
Yeah, there's 8 of us. Yeah, yes, it's a nice little 1938 tiger. I don't actually display anymore. I gave up displaying about 18 months ago. The rules got tighter and it cost more. And the only displays I was doing, or most of the displays, were village fetes and so on, and just wasn't worth their while to pay me to get a clearance. But I still do aerobatics, teach aerobatics. I've got a nice 400-meter field at the back of my house, which the farmer lets me land in every so often.
You have you talk about your family in your book. You have a son and a daughter. Did either of those two take up aviation as an occupation?
No, Lizzie did a gliding scholarship at Yeovilton when she was in her teens. But no, she's a biomedicinal chemist, and my son is working for an American company which does software systems security.
You didn't manage to transfer the flying bug then?
No, the first trip I took Charles on a 747, we went to Boston and had a few good parties with the girls and boys. And on the way back, he said, "Do you know what? I think I'll become an air steward." And I said, "No, if you want this lifestyle, then knuckle down, get a license, and become a pilot." But no, neither of them really. Although they're very happy to fly in the aircraft, they've never really got the bug.
Just finally then, Mog, not quite finally, 2 questions then. Mog, where does Mog come from?
In an Air Force squadron, and usually a naval squadron as well, on the planning board, everyone has a trigraph, 3 letters, because it's just too difficult to write all your names. And it's usually the first 3 letters of your name. However, when I arrived on 3 Squadron, there was already Clive Morrell there, who was MOR. So I became MOG, as in Moggy.
Finally, and perhaps a little bit more controversially, what was your take then on the relationship between the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy during the Falklands? I mean, you know, there's been a lot written in the media since then, who should be credited for what. What's your take on the contributions made and the way that relationship dynamic worked?
The relationship at squadron level was fantastic. There was no friction there at all. We personally knew a lot of their pilots, and they personally knew a lot of us. Where the problem came was that 1 Squadron, when they arrived, had been used to working with a very well developed NATO tasking and reporting system, which is a very, very slick system. And that was completely absent in the Falklands. The ship was trying to task aircraft just to go and go off and find something and attack it, which is not the way that they operate. And it wasn't until reasonably late on in the campaign that we managed to get one of our guys who'd done a liaison job before into the headquarters setup so that he could actually start tasking the ground attack missions properly, and also getting the feedback from the results, which is as important for the guys on the ground. So I think that was the initial problem, that the support wasn't there for 1 Squadron's tasking. The captain of Hermes didn't really want them there either, to be honest. He would rather have more Sea Harriers than GR3s. I know towards the end of their time on board, OC 1 Squadron was having a really hard time with the captain, which was really painful to watch. They got the nasty end of the stick, that's for sure. And of course, they had an aircraft which wasn't designed to operate off a carrier. The inertial navigation system rarely aligned properly. The aircraft was not designed to operate off the carrier. It had bolt-on mods to make it just about compatible. The weapons they were carrying, the 2-inch rockets they'd never used before, it was all, they were sort of thrown in the deep end without much support and without the framework that they were used to. And they were used as fodder by the captain. If there was a ground attack mission, he'd send the GR3s because he didn't mind losing them and he didn't want to lose his Sea Harriers. It was unfortunate.
If you enjoyed this clip and want more, you can go to 10percenttrue.com, hit subscribe, you get early ad-free access to all my content. Appreciate your support.